Welcome again to Purposeful Patriarchs. I'm your host, Eman, and we are continuing to go through the Moynihan report. Again, one of the reasons why this is such a powerful report is that it offers us an opportunity to set the foundation for all of our discussions. I think there's so many aspects of this report that can be pointed to. And I think in the previous episode, I played this same video, as the same one that was on BGS's on BGS's video, but I played it a little bit fast, so we'll play it at normal speed. So even if you missed what he said from the previous version, you can hear it again here. And what I'll do is I'll skip again, because I don't want to rehash all the work that BGS has done. I don't think that's a good use of people's time. But again, I think it's very, even if you don't want to read it, just by simply watching these videos, you'll be richly informed exactly about what's been going on. And I want to, and I'm going to talk about a few terms later on in the video, and then we're going to talk about the fact that there's no things like social peace and lots of different things, because it touches on so many aspects that we still see today. Okay, so let's get into it. Let me click play.
Urbanization poured into the cities. Don't forget, the Negroes of our time, because they're Americans, we don't see them as immigrants. The Negroes in Watts were immigrants, just as much as the Italians or Irish or whatever who poured into the cities in the 19th century. And it wasn't a very pretty sight in New York in 1870 either, let me tell you. The families break up when they leave countrysides, rural peasant life, and sort of dump into slums. Fourthly, unemployment. We have had 35 years of disastrous unemployment, and for the Negro male. He has never gotten over the Depression. He had 4 fair to middling years in the Second World War, and maybe a good year in the Korean War, and that's it. It's getting better just recently. But by and large, it's been going on beyond the imagining in the white world. In rates of unemployment, teenage unemployment in the white world, in the Negro world today, is almost 25%. Can you imagine that? That is a social crime. That's an outrage. There isn't a society in the world which will let 25% of teenagers go unemployed. About a quarter of Negro families are headed by women. The divorce rate is 2.5 times what it is. And all the number of fatherless children keeps growing. And all these things getting worse, not better, over recent years. It's not a matter of a bad situation that doesn't improve, but rather a bad situation that worsens. Got to get that clear. It's getting worse. How did you learn how to behave? From your father and your mother and your older sisters, maybe, and the people around you. Well, supposing there is no father, or if he is a father, he doesn't work, where there is no education, where there's no sense of getting ahead, where children are just brought up without any of that support which a family gives it, then what do you end up with? You end up a cycle reproducing itself.
The clip that you just heard was from Moynihan, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, in 1960.
Okay, yeah, so I think, one of the things I love about that clip is about what he talks about. And I may have said this quote before in one of my videos, that when it comes to families, the father is the law of the home and the mother is the love of the home, and that's when we think about the black community, especially in America, we see like these ghettos, we see hoods, all of these sorts of different things, and for a long time we've always said, it's always a fatherless issue, and that's one aspect of it, and a lot of these children that are being raised within the black community are being raised without their fathers, and it's so important that children have a family. They can learn from individuals that love and care about them. And I think that's one thing that Daniel Patrick Moynihan really did get correct from this clip. And I think that's one of the things that I'm conscious of. And what we're going to look at as well is that because families aren't just a man who's having children, it's also a woman who's having children. We're going to look into in some of the videos I've touched upon it in terms of the other side of the equation, which is the Negro female as well.
5. Speaking on the events of the riots in Watts, pay close attention to how he talks about the similarities between black folks coming from the rural South into the urban ghettos in the North and West, and Irish, Italian, and German immigrants coming into New York City in the 1860s, and how similar the effects were of the people coming from what he called peasantry in the rural countryside to the urban ghettos or the urban cities of the modern world, of the modern United States, and trying to make a life. This sets up the background to our discussion of the Moynihan Report, Part 2. Okay, folks, let's get started. We're going to go to the board on this one.
Okay, so yeah, again, he cites all of this stuff. You can go to his videos. I'm gonna go down to here. I think it is. Oh no, it's about 15 minutes in is what I want to get to. Okay, so
as well as for liberty. In other words, white men got equality in the 1930s. As far, the poor whites got equality in the 1930s and the 1940s against their richer overlords, and struck down class. And now it's time to strike down race as part of the same process. Liberty and equality are the twin ideals of American democracy, but they are not the same thing. Not most importantly, are they equally attractive to all groups at any given time, nor yet are they always compatible one with the other. In fact, you have to take two different tracks. He's trying to tell us that there. Many persons who would gladly die for liberty are appalled by equality. Many who are devoted to equality are puzzled and even troubled by liberty. Much of the political history of the American nation can be seen as competition between these two ideals. For example, the unending troubles between capital and labor. Okay, laissez-faire liberalism and the capital and free market capitalism versus the socialist ideal of distribution and social cohesion. This is what it's saying, and it's always couched in these terms, but that's basically what socialism is. Basically labor. It's basically labor and distributing the more equitably the fruits of the labor throughout the system to where you get social cohesion. By and large, liberty has been the ideal with the higher social prestige in America. It has been the middle class aspiration par excellence. Note the assertions of the conservative right that ours is a republic and not a democracy. Equality.
Okay, I'll quickly pause it there. But I find this fascinating because this is looking into the political aspects and democracy and governance of the people. And obviously over here in Britain, we have he's talked here about socialism and Labour, and that's one of our our main parties who I voted for in the past, and there is it's a similar system over here in terms of the fact that there is this constant fighting over ideals when it comes to conservatism and or capital versus Labour, and that social cohesion, that the distribution that he was talking about in terms of that cohesion in society. So again, what I'm aiming to do with this channel is to try and tie up as many loose ends as possible, with history, with the truth, with historical documents and research, because obviously, you know, America dominates, you know, British thinking because they are sort of global cousins, or you know, there's a massive sea of water between the two of us, and we think quite alike, whether it's from a minority perspective or from a dominant society perspective. So I thought that was quite fascinating, and yeah, I'll continue a little bit on, and then I'll skip over onto another part for you. So let's go.
On the other hand, has enjoyed tolerance more than acceptance, yet it has deep roots in Western civilization and is least coeval with, if not prior to, liberty in the history of political thought. Very true.
Yeah, I'll pause it there again, and I thought it was quite interesting, and I'll go back a bit if I can see where he talks about liberty and equality, and you can see this is always the tussle, you know, liberty, and equality, and when we think about this from a societal aspect, these are a lot of the sort of white people are very much focused on liberty, and this is why in the UK, we've recently seen it over the past 10 years when we're talking about Brexit and the liberty and the freedom that poses, but then for when it comes to minorities within a country, they're more focused on equality, and then you always see this tussle. And this is something that's been going on for quite a long time, well before a lot of millennials that are like myself, or even Gen Xers or baby boomers. These are things that have been happening well before our time. But again, these documents really do help explain what's going on in society. And then let's go down to here, I think. Okay, so let's see. I think we can ride this to the end. Okay.
This is the key of the whole segment. Basically, is one of the keys of the whole document. Now, the whole preamble that he was talking about led to this. Now, if you don't remember anything about what I've said in the whole 20-minute talk, and me reading this particular thing, remember this part. The principal challenge of the next phase of the Negro revolutions is to make certain that the equality of results will now follow. If we do not, there will be no social peace in the United States for generations. In other words, the Negro problem will continue. And the Negro problem will continue not only here in the United States, because he mentioned that about Africa, he mentioned that about India and the rest of the world, or the rest of the non-white world. If you can't solve this, you won't be able to rule the rest of the United States. So
yeah, I think this was fascinating. So so as I was mentioning before, the fact that there was this tussle in America between what liberty and equality, and obviously we can see from that 1960s period, if you go back and watch this video, you will see that obviously black people were fighting for equality, and essentially because they were fighting for equality, if basically in the Moynihan report, it was basically saying, if you don't give these people their equality that they're asking for, okay, there will be no social peace in the United States, okay. And in the first part of these last two videos, BGS talks about the fact that Daniel Patrick Moynihan gets a lot of things right, but he didn't think the black community would it was bad in 1965, he didn't have a view on whether it would get worse from where they were. And as we know, we can see in Black America things have gotten worse, and they certainly haven't moved forward. And in this excerpt here, which talks about the principal challenge of the next phase of the Negro Revolution, is to make certain that equality of results will now follow. So that just means if they have equality, then you're hoping that they will then get equality of results. Okay, so equality of results to kind of show that they are on par in terms of their social and economic progress with the dominant society, with white people. Okay, if they get that, then America will be peaceful. If it doesn't follow, okay, and that's where it's at. If we do not, there will be no social peace in the United States for generations. And this is what we've seen. Things are getting worse and worse. You know, it wouldn't just hamper the United States. This will become global. Okay, this will become global, and a lot of the things that happened that they didn't sort out in America have now jumped over to places like South Africa, to Britain, to Australia, and different places like that, where you do have this sort of racist white supremacist system. So yeah, I think that's quite interesting.
At least you're going to have to put a Band-Aid on this and at least give black folks a chance, because it's sooner or later, this is going to tear your country up. You cannot continue under a caste system and call yourself a civilized country. And this is the remedy that they were trying to do. All your managers want a cohesive society. You cannot have a cohesive society with this disparity of a caste system. It has to go. So like I said, this is a key. This is a key of the whole section. The prospect for equality. The time, therefore, is at hand for an unflinching look at the present potential of the Negro Americans to move from where they are now to where they want and ought to be, and basically equal member of the society. There is no satisfactory way at present to measure social health or social pathology within an ethnic or religious or geographical community. Data are few and uncertain. Conclusions drawn from them, including the conclusions that follow, are subject to the grossest error. Now he's spitting truth. He's spitting truth. This is why the Moynihan Report, nobody liked the Moynihan Report, because he spit unerring truth. Okay? Nonetheless, the opportunities, no less the dangers. Got to remember, this is an experiment. Civil rights is an experiment. Nonetheless, the opportunities, no less the dangers of the present moment, demand that an assessment be made. In other words, you have no choice. If you want a cohesive society and this is your opportunity, you have no choice. That being the case, it has to be said that a considerable body of evidence to support the conclusion that Negro social structure, this is something for black folks, check this out. That being the case, that there is a considerable body of evidence to support the conclusion that the Negro social structure, in particular the Negro family, this is game, peep it, battered and harassed by discrimination, injustice, and uprooting, is in the deepest trouble, while many young Negroes are moving ahead to unprecedented levels of achievement. Many more are falling further behind. This is the great divide in class. You just got rid of class as far in the 1930s and brought the white man up to snuff to where he's more equal with his quote unquote betters. But the thing is that the Negro family is suffering from the same thing. After an intensive study of life of Central Harlem, the board of directors of the Harlem Youth Opportunities Unlimited summed up their findings in one statement: massive deterioration of the fabric of society and its institutions. If you don't get rid of this virus, this racist virus, this inequality, it's going to infect the rest of the country. It is the conclusion of this survey of the available data that what is true of Central Harlem can be said of true of the Negro American world in general. If this is so, it is the single most important social fact of the United States today. He's spitting game. You see this? He's spitting game. He is spitting unprecedented game. What is true of the ghetto, basically Central Harlem is the ghetto, can be said to be true of the Negro American world in general. So no matter what you talk about, where you live, what town you live in, where you at, whether it's high class or low class, what is true for the Negro ghetto is true for the Negro American world or the Black American world in general.
So, yeah, this is why you see the behavior, no matter where you go in the United States. As long as there's a hood, as long as there's a ghetto, you will see the same behavior and the same pathology across multiple states, across multiple cities, across multiple locations. So so this is essentially why it looks like, in a sense, the black community is a monolith, but it is, and it is, and obviously there's a reason for it. So
he is spitting game. He is spitting game. But this is going to conclude. This is going to conclude part 2 of the Monahan report. This is probably getting a little long. Got to sit down and edit this a little bit. This is about 30 minutes, but this is part 2. But the game is going to get deeper. The game is going to get deeper. What he's spitting, the very end, the conclusions, he's spitting game. This is a must for the United States. This is an absolute must for the United States. All countries need social cohesion, and you cannot have social cohesion when you have an opposite class, especially a vocal opposite class caste system. You either have to subdue them, or you have to feed them, and you cannot subdue them under the rubric of the way the Constitution of the United States is built. Even white people won't stand for it. There's some things that they can't stand for it, and say that's what you're about. In other words, you can't go to other countries, and that's what's going on now with the police violence. America is saying that it stands for a certain thing, and you see black citizens getting shot down by police in the streets and not getting justice. In other words, we can understand it by authoritarian countries that do that to their people, but America is wagging their fingers, saying that they're righteous and their hands are dirty. And this is the same thing that Monahan was saying about treatment of the Negro.
This is such a powerful excerpt. Like when you start to break these things down, the fact that America goes around the world, trying to dictate what other countries are doing, but their own house isn't in order, and this is why there is so much hypocrisy. And I remember thinking about this in 2004 when George Bush and Tony Blair decided to go into Iraq. Iraq. and obviously the weapons of mass destruction, and it just shows you like that there is such deep sin and deep hatred across the world, because ultimately like it comes down to the sinfulness in the heart of mankind, that they have, that white people have subjected black people to this unimaginable treatment for 300 years, but is blinded by their own sin, and is enacting that upon not just black people but goes around the world, and is also putting that sort of morality or righteousness on other people when they don't even have their own house in order. And this is why it was a massive opportunity in 1965 to try and resolve the treatment of the Negro people.
Cannot go to the rest of the world talking about American liberty and equality and justice when you wreaking injustice on your the most helpless of your population. So this is a moral crisis for the United States. But like I said, I'm gonna wrap this up. This is part 2 of the Monahan.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I really hope you find this as interesting and informative. I really want to provide information. I don't want to sensationalize stuff with talking points and racism, but we're going to the historical documents. We're trying to read stuff to make sense of our world, make sense of what's going on historically, because as you can see, the past is still something that still affects people in the United States, and also in Britain as well, because Britain and America, as I said, they're global cousins, and they work in tandem on some things, and they're different in quite a few different things. But in this one, we can see that there is a massive political similarity, which affects minorities. So at the moment, one of the books I'm currently reading is Carla's book, Natives, Race and Class, and I'm going to start putting some of that stuff, some of that research together as well to support this as well. So yeah, thank you very much. Please share this with your bros, with your sisters, and let's start to sort of bring our community together, because I think once we're able to do this and make changes, by most importantly the power of God, to help us heal the black family, and obviously to hold people who don't believe that this stuff still affects people today. So thanks for your time, and I'll see you on the next one.